of Selectmen and Board of Health meeting for Wednesday, September 16th. It's approximately 6:30. First on the agenda is a COVID update by Deb Murphy and John Fuller.
So I'm happy to report that right now, Nahant has 0 positive cases of COVID-19.
That's awesome.
And we have 0 people in quarantine, which is
That's
perfect.
great news.
What, Dave?
That's great news.
Great news because school orientation starts Friday, and this is just perfect to start like this with no, not a lot of activity or any activity actually in town. Not that we can say that for our neighboring communities. The data came out at 6 o'clock tonight for the weekly data, and fortunately Chelsea and Lynn, their numbers have gone up in the last 2 weeks. They continue to stay in the red zone along with Revere. So the cases are still out there. They had thousands of residents tested in the last 2 weeks, and Lynn had 250 that tested positive, Chelsea had 163, and Revere had 201. In Nahant, we had 199 residents tested in the last 14 days, and 1 tested positive. So we have the best percentage rate of all of our neighboring communities at 0.50. So I'm just very happy that we're starting the school year with a clean slate.
Do you think we can open the calls right now?
Stay home.
Yeah.
Good job, Deb.
I'd like to add that following the optimistic observation of our data, I'd like to state the obvious, that we must remain vigilant, that it could turn at any time, and I'm pleased to see the level of activity around compliance with the mandates and guidelines, the heightened interest in maintaining a very low level, as the data points out, and we're hoping, we're looking for a high turnout at the flu vaccination clinics, and that could only help keep people's level of preparedness for COVID-19 at a high level as we would like. So again, people should make plans to show up at the vaccination clinics. Deb and other nurses in town have worked to make sure that that the influenza vaccine is available to folks. We've done very well, and we need to stay vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and again, thank you, Deb. The good results, really, you guys have been on top of this, and Tony, you and your staff. So, great job.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd also just like to highlight that in the Finance Committee and Advisory recommendation book for town meeting, the first page there is things to know regarding the setup of this year's town meeting. And hopefully people have received that by now. It's due to everyone's all registered voters' households by the 18th. But I believe a number of people have received it this week. And just to cover a couple of those things here, everyone at the meeting is going to be required to wear a mask from the moment they get, to the check-in line and into the meeting and throughout the meeting. Seating is going to be arranged at least 6 feet apart. Residents of the same household are permitted to sit next to each other. So we'll have, seats of 2 and 3, and those groups spread out 6 feet apart. We'll also we were going to try to add an extra lane on the check-in and divide that evenly so that it's less people in one line and 6 feet distance in between each person while they are in line. Same thing with the restroom facilities and the line to the microphone for when residents would like to speak at the meeting. We will have compliance officers helping usher people in and usher people out and to and from their seats, making sure people are keeping their masks on. No person that should be in quarantine under any state or local mandate or due to travel will be allowed in the meeting, and you will be asked that when you walk through the check-in line if you've traveled in the last 14 days. Very happy to hear that we don't have anyone that's required to be in quarantine according to Deb's list leading up to the meeting as of this moment. And we will have parking will be, so the direction of drop off and parking is one way through the parking lot from Flash Road behind the DPW facility, and parking is available in the Johnson School lot and also on the park side of Flash Road, one side parking only. So I just wanted to reiterate some of those things that people will find in their book so that they are anticipating what to expect when they get to town meeting regarding COVID.
Great. Thank you, Tony. It sounds like you're on top of things. Town moderator is on. Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
Let me try to unmute you, Mr. Moderator.
I can do it. Here we go. Yeah, no, it sounds like these guys have done a terrific job, and I think we're pretty much set to go. We have a couple things to discuss tonight, I think. And I think the starting period is 12:30, the regular time, and we're hoping we'll get a good turnout, but it will not be the large turnout that we expected last time we talked. So I think this is going to go fine, and I have to say that Debbie and John and Tony have done a phenomenal job. It's just incredible how different this year has been from any other. And they've really done a phenomenal job, and really, really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we get opening comments. Josh, anything? You're muted. Josh, you're muted.
All right, I was just wanted to comment that the schools have opened, and I just want to wish the students and their parents and the teachers and administrators good luck. You know, it's going to be some combination of kids learning at home and some kids in the school, and I know a lot of planning has gone into that, and I just wanted to wish all the students and their parents and the school administrators and teachers good luck. That's all.
Okay, thanks. Gene?
No, I'd just like to, like everyone, thank Tony for doing such a great job pulling this together. It's understandable how much work it is. Great job, Tony.
I appreciate that, but really, it's a team effort, and I can't take all the thanks. It really is a team effort. We have such a good team with Deb and John and everyone here at the town hall and the town clerk and Bobby Joe and legal. I mean, FinCom. So many people are involved. It can't just be held to me. I appreciate it, but it really is a group effort.
Well, thanks to you and your team.
Agreed, Jane. Okay, well, I have no opening comment at this point, so we'll move on to new business. We have some minutes to approve from July 8th, July 22nd, and executive session minutes from September 3rd. Josh?
I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from July 8th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing
No.
and hearing none, all those in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from July 22nd, 2020.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
The next motion, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the executive session Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from September 3rd, 2020.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, under 3B, we have a public hearing in conjunction with the town moderator, the adjustment to the town meeting quorum.
I move that pursuant to Section 7 of Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2020, the Board of Selectmen vote to reduce the requisite quorum for town meeting from 75 to...
We haven't, that's up for discussion, that next part.
I will second the motion, assuming we have a discussion about what the number is.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Want to fill that number in, Tony?
Well, so the chapter of law here, the Acts of 2020, and I just want to double check that. So Section 7 of Chapter 92. What it says is that the town, in order to help communities maintain quorum while promoting a smaller crowd at town meetings, this section of the act allows us to consider a reduction not less than 10% of our typical quorum amount, which is 75. So 10% of that would be 7.5 or 8. We're not allowed to go less than 8. There are certain posting requirements, and we've met that to this point. We've had to post this 7 days prior in the newspaper, which we did, and the vote has to take place 10 days prior to, at least 10 days prior to the meeting, which we are. It also is with approval or in consultation with the town moderator, who's on the call with us tonight. And essentially, we have a choice here. We don't have to go down to 8. But, you know, we do have a very limited warrant this year, very simple, non-controversial articles, and we're making a strong effort to promote a small crowd, and I would hate to be in a scenario where we have less than 75 and not have quorum to get the business done. So my recommendation would be at least to cut the quorum amount in half, but I defer to the moderator and the selectmen on where you guys are comfortable, what number you guys would be comfortable with.
Well, seeing that this meeting is in the purview of the town moderator, I'll defer to his decision on this. Dave?
Well, I don't know if you folks know it, but many of the towns in Massachusetts have abolished the quorum entirely. And the idea is that the concept of the quorum is somewhat antiquated, and the town shouldn't be held up by having some limit on the number of people that can go and participate in the meeting. I think that would be, you can't do that under this statute, but if you took it down to, even 10 or 15, I think it would satisfy the requirement of a quorum, and it would not leave you in a position where you're going to be left high and dry when you want to discuss or move on the important warrant articles that are presently on the schedule. In the old days, of course, I would stare at the television camera if there was no quorum in the room when we wanted to start. And if it didn't happen for a reasonable amount of time, I would threaten to send the police down to the bars in the town and to roust all the people out of the bars and force them to come down to the town meeting. But I never really had to do that, and I don't expect we'll have that trouble in the coming meeting either.
Well, it seems like 15, Dave, between the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, we probably have that covered.
Yep, as long as I think that would be, it would certainly satisfy the statute, satisfy the concept, and I would feel comfortable with that.
Are you okay with that, Tony?
I'm fine with it. I expect more than 15 people.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah,
we'll
so do
have, I don't know if we'll have more than 75. So I certainly would like to reduce it just to cover us on that end. So I think 15 is a great number.
Okay, and it will be televised, right? So people can watch it at home.
Yes.
I can issue threats if they're necessary.
Always.
The old blackout threat, right? So if we could amend the motion by adding from 75 to 15. Do I have a second on that?
I would second that.
Okay.
May
motion's
I
been
ask
made and
if there's
seconded.
public input?
Sure.
No, I
Go
just,
ahead.
the point that I wanted to make is that I think the number should be larger than just the elected officials of the town. And I'm not, so if the proposal is 15, does that satisfy that? I agree that with the stripped down warrant, getting 75 will be a challenge, particularly with COVID. But I wouldn't like to see a number that was just the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen. I think there should be at least some provision for, what do I want to say, general citizen input. That's
Well, this is a minimum number, right? So, in other words, the last thing we want is to go through all this trouble of setting up the tents and the porta potties and the people checking in, and then not have that minimum number to have the meeting. So I think it's wise to keep the number low, so that, I mean, obviously people are welcome to show up, but if you make the number higher and then not enough people show, then all the effort and planning that we just congratulated Tony and his team for doing is for naught. So I think given the circumstances, sort of the lowest practical number makes sense. I think Mark's comment about the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen, that adds up to 10. So not quite the 15.
That was it.
Just a quick question. Is that quorum, is that made up of both committees, the board and the residents, or is that a quorum of residents? That's 75.
It's a quorum of voters, of voters. So
Registered voters.
So,
Okay.
the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom are all registered voters, I believe. But, and I'm not sure what the number is, but
11.
it seems like 15 is a reasonable number. Quorum is really, as I say, many towns have just abolished it and made a zero quorum.
Boy, I wouldn't.
And it really, I think it's not necessary. So no one should be feeling that the town is doing anything other than following regular rules, even if the quorum's only 15, I think.
And only the warrant can be voted on, correct?
That's right. Only the articles that have been put in the warrant and approved by.
Thanks.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing here and that, none, all those in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay. Well, thank you, Dave, for that input, and I look forward to our town meeting, and I'm sure it's going to be successful. And I certainly hope there's more than 15, but not more than 700.
I can promise you, we will have some fun,
Yeah.
whatever else comes up.
Okay, great. Okay, under item 3C, deficit spending. Josh?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the deficit spending budget for the month of October, FY '21.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? This is our annual, monthly deficit spending option here. So Tony, you want to talk about this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, if we're able to complete the town meeting on Saturday, the 26th, this 1 month budget will not be necessary. But, we wanted to submit something to the Department of Revenue, and we've submitted the draft to them. They've already said it's fine. It's pretty much in line with what we've been doing the last 3 months. As a safety net, I don't see any issue. I don't foresee any issue given that we have a tent and that we're pretty much ready to go. But it is 2020. You never know what could happen, and I want to make sure we're covered just in case. But most likely we won't even need this.
Okay, that's great, Tony. I got a question. We've been doing this 1/12 budgets now since July. And what happens with some of the budget items, and Dave, you might want to chime in on this, that people may pass on, for example, if they have to do with spending or salaries and those types of things, whereas we've already approved several months of it.
So our 1/12 budget, when it comes to salaries, we got some pretty strict rules and regs from the Division of Local Services about what we could put in our 1/12 budget. It could not be less than 1/12 of the last fiscal year's total. Salaries had to be level funded, so no increase was provided until approved by town meeting. So the way that it works is after town meeting, each department will essentially get a expense report of what they've spent up until the end of September and what they just got approved for an annual amount at the town meeting and the difference between the two. So you're basically, instead of like in the past where town meeting passes the budget in May and it begins July 1st, we're starting a quarter in. So I don't know if that answers your question, but if someone passes on an item and changes the total, it's likely we haven't even, gotten more than a quarter of the way towards that total anyway. So it would be an impact for the next 9 months instead of a 12-month impact.
So you and the department head would have to make the adjustments over the next, if there was a reduction, for example. Okay. All right. Hopefully that won't happen, but we'll see. Okay, any further discussion on motion? Seeing here and none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Now we have a new appointment here to the Board of Registrars. Gene?
I move that pursuant to Chapter 51, Section 15, the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Lori Ballantyne as the new member to the Board of Registrars.
Second that.
The motion has been made and seconded. Discussion. I see that our town clerk is on. I think I saw her. But maybe not. Tony,
Yep, there she
have
is.
you
I'm
guys
here.
worked out? Okay.
So this process actually started a little bit prior to our new town clerk coming on board. What happened was we had a former Board of Registrar member, actually Molly Collin, who served for quite some time. And the process dictates that the Board of Selectmen request 3 recommended candidates from the party chair, town committee party chair of the vacant seat. And we have to do Chapter 51, Section 15 of Chapter 51 requires that we do make that request by certified mail, which we did. And we received highly recommended by Mary Livingston from Livingstone, who's the chair of the Republican Town Committee, Lori Ballantyne, as the recommended candidate. And because only one candidate was recommended, we have to wait 45 days to make the appointment. And 45 days is now passed. So I know Lori is on the phone here. I can see her name. I did talk to Mary earlier today and unfortunately is not able to attend tonight's meeting, but we're very excited to have Lori on the Board of Registrars and very highly recommended by Mary.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a great addition and a great recommendation. So any further discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, we're gonna change our schedule, I guess, right? We're coming out of winter, summer, going into winter, so unfortunately. So the Board of Selectmen's meeting will be shifting from the summer schedule to the fall, winter, spring schedule. Moving forward, Board of Selectmen's meetings will take place on the first and third Thursdays of each month. Please reference our official meeting post location, nahant.org, for the next scheduled meeting date and the corresponding agenda. Okay.
So just, we do have, just a quick explanation there. We will have a meeting next Wednesday. This is our typical prep meeting, joint meeting with the Finance Committee, with the Moderator and Town Clerk and Legal Counsel, where we go over the warrant and discuss the rules of the meeting and, how many votes are required to pass each vote. That'll happen next week, Wednesday at 6:30. And then October, we go back to your fall, winter, spring schedule. And the first meeting will be, I don't even know, the first Thursday in October.
Will that continue to be at 6:30?
That is up to you. Whatever that works best for the 3 of you. It works for me.
Yeah, I like 6:30.
I do too. Tony, will this continue on Zoom as long as the governor's emergency declaration is in place?
Yeah, well, as certainly as long as the limit's 25. So for our meetings, even right now, we're getting pretty close. I think we probably have more than 25 on right now. And that limit is to the building here in the main hall. So, it's seems to be getting even more viewership here online, and since we wouldn't be able to have more than 25 people in the building, having it here on Zoom works out better for people to be able to participate.
Okay, I know that there's some residents asked if we could also live stream this and Zoom it at the same time, and there may be some technical challenges to that. Maybe you could talk about that a little. Because there's some people, particularly, I don't want to sound like I'm discriminating, but the elderly, my mother included, who can't get on the Zoom, don't have the iPads or the computers, and really like watching the meetings on the cable channel. So is there any way of doing that through YouTube or live streaming it?
At this point, our closest achievement to that is playing the recorded version of this meeting. Tomorrow, we play it twice every day, starting tomorrow until our next meeting on the local channel, which in one sense or the other is similar to hearing it live, because if you're watching on TV, you can't really participate with what's happening on Zoom anyways, although you're not getting the information real time. It is a challenge connecting this Zoom program with the local broadcasting channel, and we just aren't there yet. We may be able to do it, and in October we'll probably try and get a closer look at it. We're actually, September 26th town meeting will be our first big effort in trying to take the live stream broadcast that'll be occurring down at the Flash Road Park and sending that feed through our local broadcasting channel. So if we can do that successfully, we should be able to do the same with this. So fingers crossed, it's going to work out. Our vendor that we've hired for audio and video for town meeting has been meeting and communicating with Pedro, who works our local broadcasting equipment, and it sounds like they got a good plan in place. So hopefully, hopefully we'll be set up. It's more or less it has to wait until October before we can really dive into the technical things that we might have to take on in order to do it on a regular basis and successfully. Certainly we don't want to be jumping into something that could cause, delay here in our meeting or disconnect or people not being able to log on a Zoom because of, the way that the feed is set up. So we want to, number one importance is confidence in the delivery of the live meeting and the ability to participate. And then the secondary goal would be to also broadcast that live on TV. So hopefully October we get there.
Well, great. That's a good explanation, Tony. And I'm thankful that the pandemic didn't happen during my tenure as town administrator, because we'd be in the dark.
I'm concerned. I'm actually concerned about, Zoom with school starting. So many school programs are utilizing this program at the same time. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed that the system doesn't crash with school starting up over the next couple days.
Okay, great. Now, item number 4, ongoing business. 4A is preserving East Point, continuing discussions. I have nothing to add at this point. Josh or Gene?
No, nothing here.
Josh, no? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we did receive yesterday afternoon, we received a response from Northeastern from our letter to them requesting that they hold off on submitting any more permit applications, and we've sent that over to Webmaster to have it posted on the website under the NU proposed expansion. So for anybody listening that's interested in that letter, it'll be posted on the website probably tomorrow.
Okay.
But to condense the response, it was we will continue.
And we'll continue ourselves. I mean, at least me as a member, one member of the board will continue. And no actions on any permitting will be taking place as long as the governor's emergency provisions under Chapter 53 are in place. So I think we can respond to Northeastern by letting them know that. I think your letter said that originally, Tony. So I think we just pursue that policy, and we'll see what happens.
And in the chat, Robert Wilson just wrote in the chat group there that they're already posted on the website. So if anybody wants to take a look, they're up there.
Thanks,
Well, I'm not surprised. Let me put it that way. Okay, we have a discussion about trash rates and.
Yes. I'm going to share my screen. Hold on one second here. Like this.
I like that screen.
How's that? Do you see the PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before I even get into this, I just want to say that Sheila Hamilton, Mary Lowe, Dan Scripp all spent a ton of time working on this project and did an excellent job. So hats off to them on all the work and effort that they put into this already. We began discussing this issue in 2019. Essentially, due to a national crisis in the waste and recycling industry, the cost of those services have skyrocketed. And right around the same time, the town's 5-year contract came up for expiration, which was in June of this year. So with a new contract coming before us, including a significant increase in costs of waste and recycling services, it really was the catalyst for us to take a closer look at how we handle our rubbish enterprise fund, how we distribute those costs to the residents of the town, and what are some things we could change to help reduce those costs to the town, or reduce the increase in costs, because costs are going up and either way, so we want to try and suppress that as much as we can. So step one for us was negotiate a 1-year contract. We said, with everything going on with COVID, with all these different elements, we said, we're not ready to do a long-term contract right now. Let's do a 1-year contract. Keep the process by which our trash is collected the same, and basically absorb the additional cost for the year. We've done that. That step one is complete. Step two was develop a new system that would help distribute the cost of that increase more equitably to all residents. And then step three, which by the way, we are in step two right now. That's what we're discussing. And then step three would come next, over the next year, is, before we sign a long-term contract, talk about publicly, what type of things we could change in that collection process that could help reduce the cost of the service. So a little history on the fee structure. In fiscal year 12 and prior, the town actually had different rates based on how many people were in each household. So as you can see in FY11 and FY12, as you had more people in your house, you got charged a higher rate. Well, that turned out to be my understanding, and Mark probably has a better understanding of it than I do, is that it really became a administrative burden, and folks weren't always honest about how many people were in the house, so that they wouldn't absorb such a high rate. So in FY13, the town decided to switch to a flat fee for all residents. And as you can see there, it's been that way It's been that way since, and the rate hasn't changed in the last 5 years. It's stayed pretty low, $3.45 for each resident, and less than $1 a day. And it's stayed at $3.45 for the last 5 years. So we've been in a contract with Waste Management for 4+ years. They provide solid waste collection, bulky item collection, single stream recycling, town dumpster services, and a couple other things. We've had a great relationship with them. They do a great job. There's always hiccups when it comes to missing some barrels or trash being missed because it was out late or not being able to get down the street. But for the most part, we've had a great relationship with them. As I mentioned, our previous contract ended on June 30th, and our new contract includes a almost 17% increase in costs. And a lot of that increase is due, as I mentioned previously, is because of the international recycling crisis, because landfill capacity is at its max here in the Commonwealth. So the processors have to ship this material elsewhere, and a national labor shortage in commercial drivers. But I will say that even though the cost has skyrocketed, when we compare the bids that were received back in 2015, the 1-year contract we just signed with Waste Management is still less than the second lowest contract, the second lowest bid that was received 5 years ago. And Waste Management includes recycling processing.
Oh, 1,000 people are dying every day of COVID.
So there's, even though this has gone up a significant amount, we're still in pretty good shape compared to what other companies have proposed to the town. So the next step that we got, this is basically step 2. We've signed the 1-year contract. We see a significant increase of $56,000. One thing we did right out of the gate was we switched all town dumpsters to front-end load dumpsters, which saved us about $10,000. And then the next step is really looking at how do we distribute the cost of this contract and the cost of the enterprise fund to all the residents. So we're changing, the proposal here is changing the source of data from water bills to real estate tax listing. So instead of using the billing addresses that come with water bills, which is based on water meters, actually using the real estate tax listing as our source of data. If we did not do this change based on the new contract, the average fee would increase to almost $400 from $345. Whereas with the change, the average fee would increase to $375. While the average is $375, most people which are residential one families, as you can see in the bottom left corner, is $351. So merely a $5 or $6 increase, still less than $1 a day. So this change definitely helps suppress the increase in the total cost of the contract for the majority of folks in town. However, it does capture folks who may previously, in a 2-family, 3-family, or 4-family, were only getting one bill for $345, when by going to the tax, the real estate tax listing, now it captures each household. So the goal here was to determine how much the town spends on rubbish on a per person basis. So we took the town's population, 3,522. We subtracted residences that have private trash, so Seaside, Richdale, Bass Point, Rockledge, Anchorage, Edge Hill, and Nahant Country Club. We added the amount of commercial businesses, And that equals the population that actually uses curbside pickup, which gets you to 3,104. Now, our target for the rubbish enterprise revenues is $531,000 and $531,346. That is actually higher than what we expect to expend, but we have to account for abatements and other things of that nature. It also doesn't only include the cost of the weight of the curbside services. It also includes costs associated with cleaning the parks and the beaches and the compost and the streets and a number of other things. So when you take that target of revenue and divide it by the number of population using town trash, you get $171 per person. So the cost per person that the town spends on trash is $171. Now what we looked at was, well, how many people are in each household or in each type of household or each type of real estate, listing. So if you look at the backup data in the bottom right corner, we are assuming 2.05 persons per household in Nahant and 2.5 persons per commercial business. And the Essex County average is 2.6. So we're being conservative and assuming less people per house compared to the rest of the county. So for a residential one, back to the bottom left corner there, we're assuming 2.05 people, so 171 times 2.05 gets you 351, and so on and so forth. So for a two-family, they would be charged $701, for a three-family, $1,052, and so forth. There's a lot of data on this slide. Dan is on the phone. Any questions about how I just explained that, or any of the data on here?
So these,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, Tony,
Go ahead,
last meeting, we talked briefly about Airbnbs. And I think you said that there were over 200 registered in the town. What happens to Airbnbs where you've got a couple, married couple or otherwise, who own the home and they're under that single family? Yet, for a period of time during the year, they're renting out rooms or apartments.
So if, like, for instance, they rent to a large crowd and produce a lot of waste in that one weekend, as if they had more than 2.05 people in the house.
Yes.
Capturing that type of thing really comes into step 3. So over the next year, looking at pay-as-you-throw type systems that capture people based on how much they actually put on the curb, that's where you would try to capture something like that. If we don't capture something like that in this like foundation, but that would be like part of the next step.
Okay, I was just looking at it as a number of households, 200, I think you said. And how do we get that registration data?
Well, they're required to register with the state. And one thing that we had, I don't want to veer off too far into the B&B conversation because it's a long one, but we did have an article on the warrant, which is now postponed for the next meeting, regarding Airbnbs, which would require they register with the town as well as the state. So that would be one way to capture them. And we can use that data in the next step of this process.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So Tony, all of the multifamily residents that you've identified from the assessor's office, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so these are legitimate 2-family, 3-family, 4 families that are being taxed as such.
And they're zoned as such. Quote unquote legal multifamilies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So by doing this, as I mentioned, you know, you're instead of going from $345 up to $400 to capture, you're going from $345 to $351 for a majority of the residents in town, and you're spreading that cost more equitably based on household instead of using the water bills as your data source. We also looked at formalizing the abatement process as well. So we have created a new abatement form that the way that we would do this is we charge based on, the classification of the household, and then the abatement is submitted and these items are checked off. And those include the elderly, which is age and income, and any resident in the household, if they meet that, any resident in the household meets that, they could be eligible. Nonprofit, a 30% reduction. Private trash collection, 68%. So what we did there was we looked at if it's a commercial business that has its own dumpster, if it's a restaurant, a function hall, something like that. They aren't actually putting waste out for curbside collection, but they are contributing to the waste stream. So folks are going into that business, getting a sandwich, going to the beach, throwing the trash in the barrel at the beach. And they're also benefiting off of the cleanliness of the town itself. So they still have to contribute to the overall system, but not as much as someone who's actually putting out curbside collection. So they would be eligible for a 68% reduction. Change of use or partial year of service. So if this is a house that is vacant for construction or anything like that, they submit the paperwork that they have from the inspectional services office to explain, when their occupancy took place, and then it would be prorated from there. And of course, any other reason. I use the term cool. I'm sure no one else would think that. But what's cool about this is it builds the foundation for step 3, where we can potentially include additional abatements based on how much you actually throw out for trash. And what I mean by that is these are the proposals that we received prior to our contract ending, and our FY20 contract, so the one that ended in June 30th, was a total of $338,255. With the increase in costs with at that when we signed that 5-year contract, we actually were being paid to recycle. We're making money off of those recyclable materials. Now it costs money to recycle. It's totally flipped over. So as you can see, the FY 2021 proposal with front end load dumpsters is that 16.5% increase, about $56,000. The next 2 columns there are savings that we could capture by changing how we collect our trash. So by going to automated collection, by utilizing the barrels that you see on the right side there, it reduces the labor cost drastically. The middle column that's in that yellow box there is if we leased the barrels through Waste Management, and then the column all the way to the right is if we bought the barrels on our own, which we could utilize grant money through DEP and our retained earnings account to do so. So if we were to switch to the uniform barrels with automated collection and purchase them ourselves, we would actually see a reduction more than 1.59% built off of the foundation of changing how we distribute the costs more equitably. So there's a huge potential for savings here in the future. There's also a massive environmental benefit when it comes to using the uniform barrels. It helps with rodent issues. It keeps our trash from being blown all over the streets on windy days and getting into the ocean and into our public spaces. And it certainly presents a lot better. Also, basically what everybody would get would be a 95-gallon trash barrel for recycling. And that would be collected every other week. And then residents can choose between a 65 or a 32 for waste. So if somebody selected, let's say someone wanted, and this isn't for tonight, this is step 3, this is stuff that we can think about over the next year. But theoretically, for someone who lives alone and doesn't produce a lot of waste, they could ask for the smaller barrel. And then at the end of the year, apply for a 35-gallon abatement to their total rate because they don't produce as much trash. But if they get a 35-gallon and they're putting a ton of trash, on top or to the side of the barrel, we'll be notified by Waste Management, and then they wouldn't be eligible for that abatement. You could also allow people to buy multiple barrels if they feel they're going to produce more trash. And you could limit that. Part of this is also incentivizing people to produce less trash and recycle more. So there's, what we're proposing to you opens the door to those options, or we could keep it the way it is, where people use whatever barrels, put as much trash as they want, and, go for negotiate a long-term contract. So that's it. That's the presentation. The idea here would be to put this in front of the Board of Selectmen for a final vote at the next meeting. I wanted to, give people an opportunity to see this and comment, or have you guys ask any questions.
Well, this is an excellent PowerPoint, Tony. Will you have this up on the website?
We can do that.
That'd be good, so people can look at that and comment over the course of the week before we vote next time.
Okay, just to make it clear, Tony, so our vote next week will simply be on the method by which we distribute the cost of our waste collection and the fee itself, the annual fee itself, correct?
Exactly. It'll essentially be
on the bins and what size bins or any of that. We're just voting on the method in which you're calculating this cost and the cost itself.
Right. In the past, your vote would have just been, to set this flat fee here. But what you'll be voting on is essentially what you see in the bottom left-hand corner there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the abatements as well. Dan, script, do you want to?
No,
add
Tony,
anything?
I think you did a good job. The idea is that we're trying to whittle it down to as close to a per person basis as we can. But as Tony mentioned, a per person basis is just not feasible. So we're whittling it down to as close as we can to get to that, working our way to the pay as you throw a process, if that is in fact what we go to during the next contract.
Dan, I think you have to go to sort of a residential data point, because if you do the per person type thing, it's, as Tony said, I tried to administer that in the past, and we'd look at the census and we'd see people dropping off the census and households shrinking, and then they're coming in to vote, and it just made a big mess.
Yeah.
So I think this is a better way of going about it.
Seems fair.
It's the idea of, make the assumption and then let the resident apply for an abatement based on, those type of things. So it's a different way to approach it. It's a pretty cool, like, hybrid, we have the option to, again, I'm using the term cool, which I'm sure a lot of other people don't see it that way, but you have
Cool and hybrid is, I don't want to hear those two words.
Yeah, those are buzzwords. But you see, like in Swampscott, they just went to a full pay-as-you-throw system, and it like shocked the residents, shocked the system. It was a drastic change overnight. We're trying to approach this in a more subtle way. So do it, over a couple of years. Really do a big public process, build a foundation of equity across the board, and it makes sense. So hats off to Dan and Sheila and Mary for all the work they did on it.
Well, thank you all for doing that. And if people have any comments between now and next week, they can get in touch with you at Town Hall.
Absolutely. So we'll put this on the website tomorrow. And we will, wherever we put it on the website, we'll include, where to send comments or questions.
Sounds good. All right, thank you, Tony. Great job. And Dan, Sheila, and Mary, thank you for all your work there. Okay, let's see, we're going on to the town administrator's report.
Yes, not listed here, and I meant to mention it in opening comments, is Bobby Jo Blair, our administrative assistant, has announced that her last day will be September 26th town meeting. So we have posted the position. It's on our website. And I would just like to publicly thank her for her commitment and dedication to the town hall, the people of this town. She lives and breathes this town and has done such a tremendous job. And I wish her well in the future. And anyone interested, please take a look at the posting. And they are applications, resumes, cover letters are due, I believe, Tuesday at the end of the day.
Thank you, Tony. It will be a great loss, that during these trying times, people have to make tough decisions, and I support Bobby Jo and her decisions. Unfortunately, we're going to lose her. Hopefully, she'll be engaged at some point down the line and come back into either volunteering or working for the town, but I understand her decision, and I support it, but we're going to miss her quite a bit. So.
Yeah, we'll certainly all miss Bobby Jo, and I've received nothing but glowing reviews from citizens about, her professionalism and pleasantry and efficiency at Town Hall. So we'll definitely miss Bobby Jo.
Okay.
Thank you. Water main project update. I do want to say with the water main project that is occurring down off of Wharf Street and also in Little Nahant, we did get a good amount of calls of folks who felt like they weren't notified about water being turned off for the purpose of those projects. And I just want to apologize for anybody that didn't get notified. We did talk a lot about how to get the word out ahead of time. We dropped letters off to all households that we assume were going to be affected by, short-term turn-offs. But with those types of projects, sometimes the valve you go to turn off doesn't work, and you got to back up down the system. You end up affecting people that you didn't intend to affect. It's only short-term shutoffs, but nonetheless, for someone who doesn't know what's coming, I can understand that concern. So, want to apologize for folks who were affected by any of those shutoffs and didn't get the message, or weren't intended to originally be affected by it. But the jobs are going very well, and we are extremely happy with the engineer on the job and the contractor. They're doing an excellent job, and it continues. So Furbish Road is detoured right now, and work is ongoing up in Little Nahant, and we're excited about that project finally getting underway.
Tony, you mentioned that there was some unexpected shutoffs because certain valves weren't working as planned. My suggestion would be, now that you have the contractor on site, to do a change order and have them replace those valves that weren't working.
Yes, definitely. Zach already, I think, pursued that before we even made the suggestion.
Okay, great.
Parrot Road Seawall update. So we talked about this at the last meeting. Zach and his crew have done an amazing job, and the residents are extremely happy with the work that's been done there. They've pretty much completed the repair project on the wall at the end of Parrot Road. There's still more work to be done with regarding the finishing touches there, as well as on Allen Way. But we've received a ton of positive feedback there. Long overdue, that project. So happy that we're getting it done right before our next season of storms. Streetlight conversion project. So we are expecting delivery of our new LED Cobra heads in the next week. That project, replacing all outdoor streetlights with LED Cobra heads, is expected to take about 3 weeks. We're extremely excited about that job. That job was actually a topic of discussion at last year's annual town meeting. The cost of the project was a little over $200,000, and the net cost to the town was a little over $9,000. So $180,000 something was paid for out of state grants, state money. So the potential annual savings is anywhere from $35,000 to $45,000 annually. So that project will pay itself off in less than a couple months. I do have a comment in the chat asking if the streetlights are dark sky fixtures. Yes, they are dark sky compliant. Through this process, we've had a lot of public discussion about it, and that was one of the big issues that we heard. So we selected a dark sky compliant bulb. These are not like super bright blue lights. They're not yellow, but they're not super bright blue. They're actually a softer color, and they're very direct in the terms of they point straight down. They don't light up left, right, or upward. So if anybody's, if you think about driving towards Nahant, coming down Lynchshore Drive and looking at the causeway, and you don't even see the fixtures, all you see is the pavement. That's kind of like what you're going to see here. Just direct lighting, less light pollution, and obviously great carbon emission savings and financial savings for the town.
Well, that's great, Tony. Great job on that and your team. And I know that the committees that worked on this with you deserve a lot of credit. So
They do.
can't wait to see.
They do.
Okay, citizens forum.
Hi, Alice Court, 7 Valley Road. Is it okay for me to speak?
Go ahead.
I wrote Tony an email earlier in the week. I'm just bringing up an issue that's for my neighbors, really, about the trees on Upper Valley Road, where there's some confusion about who's actually responsible for the trees, whether it's the town or the homeowners. For many years, we've been under the impression that the trees that sit just off of the sidewalks belong to the town, and whenever we wanted to trim them, we always contacted people and made sure it was okay that we had an arborist trim them. But recently, one of the neighbors in Upper Valley Road noted that one of the major lindens, and these trees are probably 100 years old, was infested with ants, and they were concerned that it was going to fall down on their house in one of these big storms or across the road or cause harm. So the tree warden was contacted, and then they were told that the trees are our responsibilities or the homeowner's responsibilities. And I guess that they asked for that in writing because it was different from what we had always understood. And because the tree warden is not working full time, that didn't happen. They didn't receive anything in writing. So I just wrote to Tony to give him a little bit of the history of the width of our street and the sidewalk width and everything. And just to try to clarify legally who is responsible for the trees. We were directed to Massachusetts law, I think it's 87, about shade trees. And it turns out from reading that document, it would appear that even if a tree belongs to the homeowner fully on their property, then if the town considers it a town shade tree, then you still need to get in writing permission to trim it or take it down. And that can be up to 20 feet onto your property. So I don't necessarily expect an answer today, but I just wanted to bring it to, people's attention, and so that there's some clarification, some clarity for the neighbors. All of us, or many, I think most of the residents on this upper loop between Spring Road and Nahant Road have 100-foot lindens that just sit off of our sidewalk, if we have a sidewalk, or sit about 5 feet onto the property line. And they were allegedly planted by Sophia Wilson shortly after this part of the street was accepted by the town, which was in 1909. And that's according to Fred A. Wilson's book, Some Annals of Nahant.
So that's a great description, Alice. Tony, if I could comment a little here, being a past tree warden for the town of Nahant, I have a little knowledge on this. And Dan, maybe you could follow up on this. But I believe that in order for a shade tree to be considered a public shade tree, so the town the town can pay for a tree to be planted on private property, provided that it's within 20 feet of a public way, with the permission of the written permission by the owner. So if the town, for example, wanted to plant a lot of trees, and they wanted to plant along Valley Road, and they went to you, Alice, and said, "Can we plant a tree on your property?" As long as they planted that within 20 feet of the public way, and you gave them written permission to do that, that would be a public shade tree. Now, I'll be honest with you, there's very few records at town hall about what a public shade tree is or isn't. There was one point in time when I started a tree farm down in the back of the school, and we were planting a lot of trees. And I did plant a lot of trees on private property within 20 feet of a public way. And I did receive written permission to do that. So those letters should be at town hall, but anything prior to, say, 1995 probably doesn't exist.
Well, Sophia Wilson died in the 1920s. That's what Sue Snow told me. So, but we don't know if she planted these, since this occurred right near her property, we don't know if she was acting as an agent of the town or as a private citizen. But apparently the field, and this is the field that the soldiers stayed at when Theodore Roosevelt came to visit visit Nahant. I read all about these in Freddie Wilson's book, Some Annals of Nahant.
Yeah, these I believe these are old linden trees, aren't they?
Yes, they're all gigantic linden trees.
And, you know, it's interesting on Valley Road, even if you go down the lower Valley Road, there was a whole line of linden trees, starting from Willow Road, and they go up to Ocean, and they went all the way up Valley Road. A lot of them are down now, but it does appear to me that that was not done by individual homeowners. It looks to me like the town probably had something to do with that. Whether they received the permission to do it or not, I don't know. I never found a record of it. So I'm going to leave this up to Dan. Maybe you can do some more research on this.
I certainly will. Chapter 87 is certainly the chapter to look at. But I'll have to take a look at with the tree, where it is and how it's situated, and we'll go from there. And
so there are about 6 of the giant linden trees on our one little curved block.
Yeah.
And as I said, the document that I have of our plot plan clearly shows, this is from 1917, is that the road is 33 feet wide. And so when we measured the actual road, it's 22 feet wide, gutter to gutter. And then the other 5 feet on each side, for those of us who have sidewalks, that makes up the rest of the 10 feet that get, so it brings you to 33 feet wide.
Most roads in Nahant are either 1 rod or 2 rods.
So that's 2 rods. I learned that too. I've learned a lot in the past week about these trees. But I think in particular, they're very messy trees. I know some of the neighbors hate them. I don't hate mine. But one of them in particular appears to be dangerous. And so the question is, who's responsible for taking it down? And is written permission needed whenever we want to trim them, which is what Massachusetts Law 87 would suggest.
See, I don't think it suggests that, Alice, but I'll let Dan opine on that. If it was determined to be a public shade tree, then yes, the town would have to have a say in it. But in order to be a public shade tree, it has to meet certain conditions. I'm not quite sure we can prove that these trees do meet those conditions.
So I included this section of Chapter 87 in the email to Tony. So maybe Tony could just forward my email to Dan, and that brings up all of the questions that I raised.
Can we put this on the agenda for next week, Tony? The week after, maybe. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
By the way, this is Bonnie D'Orlando. May I have permission to speak about trees?
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Thank you. I just want to say the town has been doing this since before we were incorporated. This started with William Wood in 1619, because at that point, the library was started, and it was a subscription library, and the fees went to buying trees to give shade in Nahant. The whole of Nahant was clear cut at that time. Just thought you all like to know. And the town has been doing that with private efforts ever since. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Go ahead, Bob.
Great. For a few minutes of your time, everybody, I am Bob Eels. I am the current ender of a Nahant American Legion Post 215. I'm sorry I've not been able to meet you yet in person due to our current pandemic, and I look forward to doing so soon, hopefully before my term as commander expires. During this time, our post has remained active in the town, supporting our community and veterans, including our monthly food bank in support of the town's Veteran Services Officer, as well as caring for our town's aging veteran population individually. Some of us may have even walked the Memorial Day parade route and offered words and prayers at each of our traditional ceremony locations, while further, we have held a scaled-back flag retirement ceremony this year at the Nahant Life Saving Station, and we also recently lit it up purple in recognition of our nation's Purple Heart recipients. This summer, the Nahant American Legion Mortimer G. Robbins Post 215 belatedly awarded Legion member Kenneth C. Gavin, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force retired, a certificate of recognition and achievement of his 100th birthday, and for his outstanding service in the U.S. Army Air Corps and United States Air Force. I'd like to publicly recognize Colonel Gavin, who at the beginning of his service career flew 2 missions into Normandy on D-Day and also flew during Operation Market Garden, attempting to liberate the Netherlands as part of the U.S. Army Air Corps, which then became the U.S. Air Force. He served during the Korean War and continued serving until his retirement as Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force, and as Operations Officer at Otis Air Force Base. Following retirement from active duty and reserve duty, he continued and remains today a vital member of the Nahant community and the Nahant American Legion Post, giving years of service, assistance, and comradeship. Lastly, I'd like to let you and the community know that in the United States, the third Friday in September is our National POW MIA Recognition Day. Each year since 1989, a presidential proclamation brings the nation together to remember and honor the members of the armed force who remain missing in action or were prisoners of war. The day serves as a call to action, reminding the nation to rededicate our efforts. We're responsible for bringing our patriots home and for caring for our families awaiting words of their loved ones. Currently in the U.S., almost 1,600 missing and unaccounted for service members, and there are 39 of them from Massachusetts alone. The POW MIA flag is flown this day over significant national landmarks and government buildings across the country. This year, and this Friday, September 18th, we will fly the POW MIA flag at our post located within our community's historic life-saving station. The Nahant Life-Saving Station was an historic preservation opportunity that our American Legion Post proudly supported with initial funding upon the sale of our prior post located within the town. Again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to continuing the mission of supporting our veterans, community, and youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, very much. Well said. You said it all. It's so nice to hear you recognize Ken Gavin, a great community person. His family is rooted deeply in this town. He is certainly a sort of a Renaissance man. There's not much that Kenny hasn't done or performed in his life, and he's just a great guy. And thank you in the Legion for recognizing him. He certainly deserves it. I was wondering, the proclamation you said is read on the third Friday of September?
Correct. It's a presidential proclamation, correct.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if, with the permission of the town moderator, maybe it's something we could read at town meeting too. I think it would be appropriate, but that would be his call on that. But I know that you guys have. I've been involved with the Legion from day one since we moved. from Spring Road to the life saving station. And you guys have always supported the town. If it wasn't for you and the Legion stepping up, the preservation of the life saving station probably wouldn't have happened. So we really appreciate everything that you guys do. The food bank, my mother is down there every week. She loves it. So thanks again. You guys are great.
Well, we're missing
Thanks, Glenn.
we're missing a lot of the activities that we've been able to do in the past. We're also taking the opportunity for some introspection and looking forward to what we can do in the future as we come out of this. I'm a relatively new member, to the community, but the Legion has long roots, in the community. We're very proud of that service, and we want to continue that as a Legion. We certainly recognize your dad on his passing, and Eddie Poulin on his passing as well. We've taken steps to be able to recognize. We would love to be able to do some service recognition of those, but we're also, having new flags and other things that are done in recognition of those times as well. So again, we certainly. The purpose of me being here and wanting to communicate is we want to extend that hand and make sure that that we're still here, and we want to support the community that has supported us as veterans on the home front as well. So thank you very much.
We certainly have. And my first job was setting up the candle pins down the old Legion every Saturday morning.
There may be some somewhere.
Now, Nahant Historical Society has some.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I speak again, please?
Is that Bonnie?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Bonnie.
Thank you. I am deeply concerned about something that's been going on several years, or lack thereof, and that is our assistant librarian, Karen Ziering, is not paid properly by this town. And I'd like to have you explain to me why the library's request has been denied. I understand from the trustees of the library that Sharon Hawks, our director, is asked nothing for herself in increase. She is asking for her incredible assistant who works so hard. The two of them are doing the work of three, because we are unable to hire a children's librarian at the salary that's offered.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. I'll let the town administrator speak to that, but I understand that under the governor's emergency order and the 112 budgets that we are not allowed to increase salaries. Is that correct, Tony?
We're not.
Our salaries are levels.
We're not allowed to increase salaries without town meeting approval under the 112 budget process. Yeah.
Okay, so the police, fire, public works unions, they have all made agreements and they will probably not pass. Is that correct?
No, they're included. Their 2% increases are part of a 3-year contract, but they've not been able to be paid that until town meeting approves.
Okay, so since this young woman has got a master's degree in library science and she's not even paid the living wage for Essex County. And so we give raises to other people, clerical, whatever. We've got situation on about teachers with bachelor degrees and they earn more than she does. This is not fair. And I would appreciate a clearer understanding of why that has been going on year after year. This is not a one-time thing.
Well, I mean, I would start by saying it's probably inappropriate for us to discuss a staff person's wages without inviting them to the conversation. Number one. Number
Well,
two, I would say,
Excuse
I
me.
appreciate Bonnie, your comments. I think she does a phenomenal job over there, and I don't think anybody denies that.
Mhm.
I think that there's a little bit more to it. There's the way that the budget for the library is set up. It's voted in lump sum, and the librarian has the ability to determine, so long as they fall within the approved classification plan of the town, to determine those salary ranges or those hourly rates. So, you know, the request did come in this year for $10,000 raise for her and for the other job. And we can't do that this year. I know there's been years in the past where it's been requested, but I'm going to speak to this year. You know, that request was denied. $10,000 increase is significant, especially in a year when we have a lot of financial uncertainty about what our revenues are going to look like, and we're not operating at a full capacity as well. So, you know, there is an element of a unique financial scenario this year there as well. But I do agree that she does a phenomenal job. I've never heard anything but positive comments about the work that she does over at the library.
I just reiterate that I think that it's unfair because she does put, like Sharon Hawks does, she puts her life on the line to keep that library going. I saw her out in the street today delivering books to people who were shut in Nahant and couldn't come out.
You know,
And
Bonnie,
I thank you all for putting your lives on the line to do that, but I think she should be treated. And the thing is that this has gone on for some years now, and we need to fix this somehow or other.
well, the place to fix it is at town meeting, for this year anyway. The budget has been set, and submitted to the finance committee. So what I would suggest that you do at town meeting, Bonnie, is, you know, I could meet with you to discuss on the side, but pass on that line item and we could have a discussion on it at town meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I thank you all very much. And I know how hard all of you work, but we need to be fair and take care of our people because they are so precious and you are all so precious. So thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking up, Bonnie. Okay, anybody else? Okay. I think that's it. No other business, so I can have a motion to adjourn.
Motion for adjournment.
Hello.
Motion. Hello.
Yes, this is Nancy Carey, 23 Phillips Road. I'm trying to ask a question.
Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Yes, it's a quick one. There's no line item for September 2nd, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes or recordings on your webpage. I expect that's because it was a special joint meeting with the FinCom. My question is, are the minutes available? Is the recording available? And if not, do you have any idea when they will be?
Which ones did we do tonight? Which ones did we approve? Hi, Nancy, this is Tony. Mr. Chairman, which ones did we approve tonight? Did we approve that one?
July 8th, July 22nd, and the executive session for September 3rd.
Yeah, so not September 2nd.
And
That was the finance committee meeting that we joined.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, and Okay. Was that the Saturday meeting?
No, it was a Wednesday.
I believe it was a Saturday meeting.
No, September 2nd was a Wednesday, and you met at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that was the
Big
meeting
warning.
where we voted, that was the meeting where we voted to, reduce the warrant.
Right.
Correct.
I'm sure we're probably working on them, and, we'll get them as soon as we possibly can.
Tony, do you want to review what the requirements are for meeting minutes?
Sure. So, when it comes to open meeting law requirements and recording minutes, the bar is actually really low, and we surpass that pretty significantly. When it comes to, the open meeting law only requires that minutes be approved by the chairman, not even in public session, and simply submitted to the clerk. They're not required to be online. Videos aren't required to be online. However, we strive to go, far beyond that, as well as with the quality of the minutes. The open meeting law simply says generally capture the discussion and record the votes that are taking place at the meeting. And we go beyond that in what we try to capture in those minutes. So we do try our best to get as much as possible included in the minutes and try to get them up as quickly as possible. The open meeting law requires that you approve those minutes within 30 days or by the third meeting after, whichever is longer, I believe. So we're not quite there yet. We haven't surpassed the requirement yet, but that one was a fairly quick meeting, if I recall. So I'm sure we should be able to type up the minutes. But the video is on the FinCom website, on the FinCom's page right now.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Tony, one correction. The timeline that you just mentioned is part of the CMR and the regulations. That's really just a guideline. If there's good cause that more time is needed to get those minutes out, then that is not a problem. And especially during a pandemic when there's a lot of stuff going on, it's understandable where minutes might be a little bit beyond the deadlines suggested by the regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, any other discussion before we adjourn?
Yeah, hey, Mark, it's Gene.
Go ahead.
Before we adjourn, I just want to address something because it bothers me a little bit. And that is there any way to revisit this library situation? When I was running and up until probably a week ago, I've heard a lot about this, her not being paid enough for the position and the work she puts in. Is there a way to revisit it so we can look at that between now and town meeting?
Well, there's certainly a way at town meeting to revisit it. When it comes to library salaries and wages, you pass on it, and there is a discussion. If it's going to be if we're going to increase that, we need to identify the source from which we're taking those funds in order to increase it, and it could be done there.
So there's also, just so you know, Gene, there's, when it comes to how things are voted on at town meeting, in the libraries, as I mentioned earlier, in the library's case, it's voted lump sum. And then the salaries are dictated by the salary classification plan, which provide ranges depending on the.
However it's voted, we still have a person who's not being paid the amount of money that she should be paid for the responsibility she takes on and the effort she puts forward. So I'm just,
Well, what I'm saying is that may be able to, be taken care of without even a town meeting vote, simply within the structure of the library's budget.
Okay. Well, we should do something. There's somebody we could lose.
Yeah, again, I really don't, I feel uncomfortable not having not inviting her to this conversation. We should probably, I can talk more to you about it and
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk
Anything
about
else?
it.
Anything else?
Yeah, one more thing. We don't get the opportunity to talk, so, because of open meeting laws. So I have one other question. I've had a number of calls, complaints about contractors working before 7 o'clock in the morning. I always understood 7 o'clock to be the start time for contractors. Is that the case?
No, it's not, Gene. We had an attempt at town meeting, I think 2 years ago, to set limits on when contractors can start and then they have to stop, and that did not pass. And even the FinCom did not recommend that. So that could be something we can revisit sometime in the future. But as of now, there's no bylaw in that regard.
All right, yeah, there's something to think about.
Yeah, it's been on the town meeting floor before, so there is precedent for discussion, no doubt about it. In fact, I can probably dig it out for you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other discussions? Okay, there's a motion on the floor to adjourn, made by Gene.
Yeah.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Josh. All those in favor?
Josh, Hanford, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Thank you.